All right, for those of you who are hanging with me because you are super devoted and very kind people, I'm going to continue with my presentation. So the thing that really struck me and has stuck with me in Dr. Dan Howding's TED Talk, was talking about how they in their belief, autism is not what disables them; it is the environment that is disabling. And so I spent a lot of time thinking about that in regards to my classroom, and also even as a parent, realizing how true that is. How many things in our world are structured for neurotypical people. We as neurotypical people assume that that is the way things are supposed to be. It's the right way because it's the way that works for us, and realizing that. That neurodiverse people need things done in a different way, and different doesn't necessarily mean wrong, it just means different. So we really need to start looking at all of those different things that we just assume are the right way to do things, and consider, is this disabling for somebody else? Is this situation, is this environment disabling for someone? If I made small changes to my environment or to a student's environment, or will they be able to succeed in a way that they weren't before? I highly recommend watching that TED Talk because it really looks at autism in a totally different way and is very thought provoking and inspiring. So if you would like the link, I know someone you can ask. All right. So, what some things that I did that worked really well was just having a different mindset and using and reframing things in a positive way. Realizing that, again, that people who have neurodiversity are not broken. They are not. They're not abnormal that and need to be forced to become normal, and realizing there's lots of things they can do and what they can contribute, and being able to assuming competence, assuming competence from the get-go, and using that positive language instead of asking what I don't want to see, what we don't want to have, but constantly talking what we do want to see, and using really positive and really detailed um, words and vocabulary and language to make that come across, realizing that context blindness may be at play and that it's possible that someone just doesn't understand what they need to do. And so having that in my brain really has helped, and been I feel like that has made my communication better with a lot of students because of that. The second thing that I've done that I feel has worked really well was planning for diversity. Um, Realizing that uh, neurotypical people are actually maybe not as majority as we think. When we consider, we have neurodiverse people, we have ELL people, we have kids who have gone through trauma. A lot of those strategies that work really well for them are the same. And so if we plan for diversity to begin with, it actually saves a lot of time and causes just a better environment, a less stressful environment, a more positive environment. So planning for that diversity to begin with, because the neurotypical kids adapt really well and really easily. So to plan for the kids that don't adapt as easily just makes more sense in the long term. And so that's some things that I've done. And I have some examples of that. So some examples of that are routines, procedures, and visual schedules. Students that are neurodiverse really thrive better when they have regular routines that are consistent, when they know when the procedures are very laid out, very detailed, very structured, and things like visual schedules, everything visual. If they can see the order of the way things are going to go, if it's the same and predictable every single day or throughout the day, that eases a lot of anxiety and eases a lot of behavior issues. Just and again, having that visual, having things broken down into tiny steps, and having as much detail as possible has really helped. So I started off that year with I have my visual schedule is on my board every single day. I try to keep every day thus as much the same as possible. And have lots of routines, and so that the students all know exactly what to expect. I try to if there's going to be a change in routine, I try to give as much notice as possible, because surprises and going out of routine can be very difficult, for students with neurodiversity, and for ELL students, and for students with trauma, etc. Some room adjustments that I've made. I'm really lucky because I'm in a room that has a lot of space, so I have a lot of flexibility in seating, and that seems to really work well with some students that need to either be by themselves, or they need to be in a group, or they need to be in different spaces. That way, that's really helped. With that, keeping the lights dim, using really soft music at the beginning of the class has kind of helped things to be calmer, and keep kids from feeling overstimulated. Junior high is a very stimulating place, and there's a lot of lights, there's a lot of noises, there's a lot of sounds, and being able to make some of those adjustments can really help kids who are anxious or having behavior issues because they're overstimulated and they just need their senses to have a break. Chunking has been another thing that has been really effective. I try to plan my classes so that we don't do anything for longer than 20 minutes. And that's a long chunk. Usually my chunks are more like 10 or 5 minutes. I find that helps the kids. It's just when they have things that are in smaller chunks, it's a little bit more manageable. It's not so overwhelming, and that can really ease a lot of anxiety as well. And also seems to increase productivity, because I only have to do this for a few minutes. I can do this for a few minutes and then I can go on. Especially chunking is especially effective for students with ADHD, because the idea of doing something for long term is just too difficult. But doing something for a short amount of time and then switching can be a really effective way to learn. And taking breaks. The research is showing that taking really good, effective, regular breaks increases productivity and decreases anxiety and increases energy. So I've added breaks into each of my classes for the students as well. Some challenges that I have had. Having patience and faith, realizing that just because I do something once and it doesn't work doesn't mean I should just throw it out, but just realizing that sometimes it takes a while for kids to settle in. It takes a while for them to get used to the new routines. It takes a while for us to kind of get that pace going and get into that groove, and just having that patience and faith to believe in the process and hang in there. Another challenge in my room adjustments is just realizing that there's kids with, some kids who have high sensory needs and some kids who have low sensory needs, and you need to try and balance that. You have kids who need lots of stimulation and kids who need very little stimulation, and you have to kind of balance that. You need kids that like lots of noise and activity, and you need some that need quiet. You need some that need structure and some that need autonomy. And so trying to balance all of that has been a bit of a challenge. We're still working on that. And the final challenge has been the lunch group that Haley and I have tried to start. We have been really wanting to help students develop friendships based on their own desires, and saying that this is something they wanted. And so far, we've had a really hard time getting kids. We have kids expressing desire to be part of that, but the follow through has been difficult. So we've been looking at problem solving that and trying to figure out what we can do to help with that. I'm going quick because I'm running out of time and I don't want to do part 3. So bear with me. All right, so my next steps is I really want to look at how I can help neurodiverse students establish and foster friendships in school. Again, like I said, I have students who have expressed desires. They say, I don't have friends and I want to have friends and I just don't know how to do that. So that's kind of the next steps that we're looking at. We're looking at, if we started with our wellness group and we kind of changed that into a board games group, and we're still looking at different ways that maybe we can help some of these really lonely kids connect with other kids in this school. And the great news is that our school is set up really well there are all kinds of different groups and all kinds of different clubs and activities to be part of. So it's just really, hoping it's just a matter of trying to connect these kids into these groups and just, again, teaching them all of those little steps and that sort of thing. Anyways, I have about 20 some seconds left before my recording ends. So if you managed to get through all of this, I appreciate your time. And if you have any questions, I'd love to hear from you. And That's it. Enjoy the rest of your day.